Wessel Botha from Enterprises University of Pretoria, and I'll be discussing the impact of modernization on skills today. A project commissioned by the Mandela Mining Precinct, in which we conducted in collaboration with the CSIR. As an introduction, the background, this project builds further onto previous studies done, which is titled the Full Modernization Impact Assessment, also conducted by the Enterprises University of Pretoria, which served as a foundation to the actual current study. The outcomes of the study indicated that there was a need to investigate the specific impacts of modernization on skills, and what are those future skills that we are looking towards. The current project focused on the identification of skills needs, specifically within 3 designations. Those designations is the rock drill operators, winch operators, and the shaft timber person. As new skills, upskilling and reskilling will be needed for mining modernization, the study aimed to conduct a skills needs study which may allow identifying these skills for those 3 designations. Through investigation into Mining Skills 4.0, recommendations for curricular changes to the Mining Qualifications Authority, and those skills programs will become evident for those 3 specific designations. So it's necessary for us to understand that this is not a skills list for the industry overall, but specifically to 3 areas. The current project focuses on the identification of these skills needs, as I said, for those 3 designations, and we worked in close collaboration with the MQA, the Mining Qualifications Authority, as well, to identify those current skills as well as some of the future skills needs. So a lot of the study was based on what our sector skills plans look like and our projections into those skills development areas over the next few years. So we had basically 3 objectives for the study. So, objective 1 was to actually conduct the skills needs study for the mining modernization process, specifically regarding to those 3 key affected designations. As we found in some of our other studies, rock drill operators is an affected position, and we thought, let us focus our study towards a designation like that and see what the future holds for those designations. Conduct a gap analysis, that's our objective 2, of the current versus the future mining skills required for what we refer to as Mining Skills 4.0. Objective 3 was to actually then develop a skills needs matrix with the technical leadership skills needs of those designations. So these objectives have been met and obviously supported through the literature review, data gathering and case studies, and then a recommended skills needs matrix was designed per designation. Research methodology, we obviously looked at starting off our research with a literature review, which always creates some form of a foundation to a study. We utilized online questionnaires and a case study analysis. Due to the impact of COVID-19 and the pandemic, global pandemic that we're under, we could not conduct on-site investigations. So we had to conduct all of this through online questionnaires as well as online interviews and group workshops and stakeholder validation sessions. So as I said, one of the limitations was that we could not actually go into the operations and partake into the day-to-day operation and investigate the skills there in a physical manner. So we had to rely on experts to provide us with inputs into that. Starting off with our literature review. Now, it was clear that there are new skills requirements within the mining sector. For the purpose of the study, these can be grouped into 3 major areas. Now, the study started off firstly investigating technical skills and the leadership skills. And it was soon found that there's actually also the need for a digital skills. So it was found that modernization might bring about not only reskilling and upskilling, but there might be the need for completely new skilling. The term new skilling refers to a complete set of new skills that will be required within the position. For this study, the skills requirements of 3 designations were investigated, as I said, and the initial findings from the literature review is that all these designations will share a combination of the following skills. As an example, active listening skills, monitoring, critical thinking, speaking and reading comprehension, judgment and decision making. Relevant to the digital skills and reskilling of required future technical skills also becomes evident. It was discovered that the MQA is focused on many positive initiatives that they are rolling out in market, in the sector, and which is focused a lot on the practical skills. So there has been a drive towards the development of practical skills, which was some of our previous findings and other studies conducted already showed a disconnect between the requirement of industry versus the output of educational institutions in South Africa. So it is also evident that there is a digital transformation taking place, and that skills at all levels in operations should be geared towards this transformation. This would require revision of the current competency frameworks and skills programs to include elements of Industry 4.0. For instance, digital interaction, usage, and transformation. So, some of our findings from the study. It was evident that there will be impacts on the skills, requirements of the future of these three designations. However, these impacts might not be as dramatic as we expect. So quite often people think modernization, oh my word, we all need new skills. We all need to become IT experts. The reality of this is that the technology is changing in small increments, and that the adjustments is actually being made on site from a month-to-month, year-to-year basis. Increased alignment between the educational institutions and operations may ensure that the skills requirements are actually being addressed correctly. Now, this is, again, an area where stakeholders need to sit around the table, and we need to develop a similar strategy, where education can support the strategy of that industry and not the other way around. Educational frameworks in terms of qualification and skills program approvals need to be revisited and aligned to align to the speed of change taking place. So quite often we found that there's a lot of bureaucracy and levels to go through for the approval of qualifications. Yet the mine operation might already have a qualification or skills program aligned to their needs, yet they have to go through, or they have to jump through many hoops to get that approved. And thus cannot roll it out. So the skills on levels in qualification for the three designations will change as mining modernizes. An example being that the need for onsetter certification for the shaft timber person to support skills mix needs. One of those aspects, for instance, of the skills mix needs is multi-skilling, where an operator might require more than just the single skill of actually operating the machine. The designations will require higher basic literacy levels, and that's something that boils down already into our primary and secondary education levels. The inclusion of digital skills into the skills matrix per designation is needed for mining modernization. As designations will move away from the face and with using of modern technologies, some basic digital skills will be required across these designations. The designation may need to cope with basic data analysis, interpretation, and dissemination. This does not mean that we all need to, as I said, all need to be IT specialists or communication specialists. It is about understanding the data that's being put out by our machine. The designations may have the potential to be future multi-skilled designations, implying that possibly the shaft timber person may need skills to support new roles or jobs in the future. For any change, including skills or roles change, it may be suggested that change management form a foundation to that change taking place. The draft change management guideline that we've done in a previous work study may be used to enable change management, or a simple ADCAR process may be utilized. For the shaft timber person, an onsetter certification could become part of the future qualification requirements. As I said, again, these are future predictions that we are making, and a qualification like that could ensure that our shaft timber person is a well-rounded, multi-skilled individual. This links in with the aspect of multitasking, as I've just said, and the identification of future jobs impact, where an individual might not only perform their own job, but also jobs related to neighboring divisions. There remains a disconnect between the needs of operations and educational institutions. This has been found across various sectors, so the mining sector is not unique in that factor. Yet, as a large contributor to the GDP and to employment in South Africa, it's necessary to address that as a sector as a whole. The MKA will also need to consider skills needs for the affected designations through mining modernization and review their actual curriculum that they put out. It is recommended that a study be conducted into the specific technology changes, how that technology will change, what impact that will have on these various designations. Additionally, the role profiles, remuneration, and organizational structures may be impacted in the mining modernization as employees are obviously upskilled or reskilled and obtain new skills. This may need a deeper understanding. So some of our recommendations. As I said, there were skills matrices developed for each of these three designations. And we will see the rock drill operator there as an example. We looked at the three areas. The first one being a technical area, the second one being a leadership skills, and the third one being our digital skills. Now, there was quite a lot of similarities between the three designations in terms of technical skills. What we have found is that there's not a dramatic, complete change in the actual technical skills. In leadership, we found that there is quite a big change in terms of our communication, how we interact with other divisions, how we report, and how we utilize our data to actually report on our operations. So something in between the technical and leadership is a change from a technical into a maintenance role for all three of these three designations. And then on the digital, again, we refer to the word basic. We don't need to become a fully fledged ICT expert, but we need to understand data analytics. We need to understand if my machine is providing me with information, what do I do with that information? What is important? What is not important? What is critical? How do we create preventative maintenance instead of a reactive approach to maintenance? As was said earlier, a necessity for adopting these new skills would be change management. And it can either go through a change management guideline, as we've done in previous work studies, and it can be referred through the Mandela Mining Precinct, or we can use a simplified model of the ADCAR change management process. So the value of the study to the industry, what is the output at the end of the day? The matrix per designation may be used to customize or adapt it to fit the modernization business strategy of the company. Where are we now? And if we are modernizing operations or we become a future fit operation, what do we utilize in that? So in our models, you will also see that there is areas on how to address the gaps between current and future skills needs. It needs to be noted that the matrix per designation supports forward-looking skills needs. The matrix per designation may serve as a guidance to the sector towards potential new skills, upskilling and reskilling needs, and also assist in informing development plans, profiles, and organizational structures. Again, it's going to be dependent on the strategy of that organization and how much effort they're going to put into their modernization processes. Mines may use, customize, or adapt the matrix as per the mine's modernization journey, as I've just said. I want to thank you for your time. Skills are changing. It's across various sectors. I think it's necessary for us as a sector to actually sit around the table, get the various stakeholders involved, understand a strategy in terms of skills development, get the regulators speaking together, the actual educational institutions, and the operations, labor representatives to all speak the same language. Thank you.
Good day, I'm Moreen Marota, a mining engineering intern at Mandela Mining Precinct. I've been with the company for a period of approximately 18 months, and I am currently part of the mechanized mining systems. Upon my arrival at Mandela Mining Precinct, I have worked on several projects, but the project of interest today is support methodologies and technologies for use in South African narrow reef mines. So on the agenda, I have my introduction, research findings, and conclusions. The purpose of the research report is to provide a literature review of current support technologies, the installation process, and the exposure of the workforce to hazardous areas during the installation of support technologies. The ultimate objective is to develop systems and technologies that will combat the fatalities and injuries in underground mines. This can be achieved by minimizing the exposure of employees to unsupported areas by means of remotely operated roof bolting. A further enhancement would be to introduce a full autonomous support installation system. So this research work is undertaken within the SAMEDI strategy implemented by the Mandela Mining Precinct. It is anticipated that the future of mining will see an operator completely separated from the machine, removing them from harm. So the research questions on this slide served as a guide for the research project. So the first one questions how the support holes are drilled and the kind of a drill that is used. So the second one locates the operator and the assistant during the process of drilling and supporting. The third one questions how the support holes are drilled. The third one questions how the support units are installed. And the last one questions whether the installation process requires a person to insert the bolt into the hole or whether it is done mechanically. So on this slide, I have a figure which shows the installation of install bolts back in the days, and it is shown on the picture that the person had no apparent support. On the slide, I have figure 2, which shows the roof bolter machine. So with this machine, roof bolting, installation of roof bolts, and insertion is done automatically. On the slide, I have conclusions, and it can be concluded that adequate advancements have been made in roof support technologies and the installation processes in the South African hard rock narrow reef mines, presenting improved safety of the workforce, strength and stability of the underground workings. However, the implementation of the improved support units proved to be ineffective in some mines due to differences in the mine's conditions. The availability of skills is also a crucial area of focus, as the main aim is to fully mechanize the support installation process and allow remote operation of the support technologies, particularly roof bolters. So this requires the deployment of innovative engineering approach, trained workforce, and appropriate operating procedure to better develop and manage the support technologies. Modernization of mines is not mechanization or the gradual implementation of new technology. It is not the replacement of people with machines. It is a process of transition and transformation of the mining industry of yesterday and today to that of tomorrow. Modernization of mines involves recognizing that people are the heart of the mining industry with focus on improving skills, health, and the quality of life. It is also worth noting that mechanization may not necessarily lead to job losses, but to different employment demographics, such as the employment of more skilled people and the upskilling of the current workforce. The success of improved health and safety in the South African mining industry is reliant on the successful implementation of mechanized mining methods, as changing technologies requires a paradigm shift in the mining method until the effective mesh is successfully brought into effect. Thank you.
Hello, name is Wessel Botha. I'm a candidate data researcher with the CSIR. I'm a mining engineer by profession. Today I'll be speaking about the guideline for an efficient mining cycle system, of which is the project we did for the MMP. The project aimed at developing a blueprint for an efficient mining cycle using different suites of equipment for both gold and platinum conventional mines. We looked at the pneumatic equipment, hydropower, as well as the electrohydraulic. The aim was to develop all this suite and then to say if your mine is using pneumatic equipment, and then what sort of equipment will go better with it for efficient mining cycle to complete the whole cycle. And then same thing for hydropower, same thing for pneumatic, as well as the electrohydraulic. The project, there were different activities in the project, which included gathering information on mining cycle activities, which would be support, drilling, blasting, cleaning. We also looked at ventilation, the manpower requirements, cycle times, power requirements, and mining layouts. We also went on to look at the techno-economic analysis of the layout in order to establish the baseline blueprint. We wanted to have a baseline blueprint which we're going to use to compare other systems. And then we used, the baseline was pneumatic power equipment, and then pneumatic being the most commonly used power source for your rock drills in your stoping environment. And then we went on to gather data from the mines and OEMs, just to know to understand, or to be able to have that data to compare with. And then we also went on to update the baseline blueprint using the information that we had gathered from the mines. And then we conducted a techno-economic analysis of the layout to establish the productivity figures. And thereafter, we identified opportunities for optimization, which meant looking back into your mine design, your support, your shift cycles, your explosives, your drilling, your manpower, your cost and power. Under productivity parameters, we looked at, that is for both your baseline as well as the other hydraulic and electro-hydraulic equipment suite. And then we looked at your meters drilled per shift, your tons per shift, your tons per month, your advance per blast, as well as advance per month, in order to determine how much tonnages do you actually produce a month. And then that way we can be able to say we're comparing apples with apples. And then we can say, for this one, if you're blasting this much, you're advancing this much, you're getting this much tonnages, then that means for this one you're getting this much of that, and then we can compare that. And then we looked at the general mine layout, which looked at things like your mining method, your raise lines, your operating levels, and then we went on into your stoping level or sections, and then where we said in your stopping section, what kind of support do you use, what sort of layout, your cost of support, what type of support, and then how long does it take to actually install your support. And then we looked at drilling. And then again for drilling, we looked at your number of rock drills required, your number of operators, rock drill operators. We looked at the duration for drilling, the power and the energy required. We looked at how much explosives will be required per hole, per panel when you're blasting, what sort of accessories, explosives or blasting accessories do you need, how many of each, and then how much will they cost. And then we moved on to looking into your cleaning times. We only focused on scraper cleaning and in-stop cleaning only. And then we said how much time will it take to finish your cleaning, at what cost, how many shifts will be required to finish cleaning that blasted material, what are the energy requirements, as well as cost requirements, as I've mentioned. And then at the end, we compared all of these, and then we said we did our cash flow analysis, now looking at your capital costs, your operating costs, including your energy, water usage, and manpower. To say now, this is the complete cost analysis, which then led us to determining our NPV from the moment you start cleaning. Or from the moment, you start cleaning until the moment you blast, or whichever way you want to start your mining cycle. But for the entire mining cycle, that is what we looked at. And then we said, for this equipment suite, if you're using hydropower, your net present value is this much. And then if you're using electro-hydraulic, and then your net present value is this much. And then if you're using your pneumatic, your net present value is this much. And that was the end of the project. And then as far as my involvement in the project, I was involved throughout the process, the project process, from the data gathering, moving on to data analysis, calculating your costs, you're looking into the mine design, your layout, your equipment, what sort of equipment, how many of each do you need, how many people, how many hours, all of that, the tonnages, all of it. I was involved. There was 3 of us in a team. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it.
So thank you so much to the presenters today. Good day. I am Shireen Ramprasad, the Program Manager for SATCAP, Successful Applications of Technology Centered Around People. Joining me is our host, Martin Pretorius. He's the PM for Mechanized Mining Systems and Longevity of Current Mines. Hello, Martin.
Hi, Shireen.
Hi, thank you for listening to Day 2, Track 1. Thank you to all our presenters for delivering such concise presentations. We had presentations from our interns and our research partners, University of Pretoria and CSIR. Tshepo Chabalala's study actually focused on mines healthcare support to communities during COVID-19. It highlighted some of the initiatives embarked on by mining companies during the pandemic last year. And a key finding is that engagement is needed between the government, industry, and communities to allow for relevant community support. This work has linkages to the project that was presented yesterday, a community engagement and inclusivity model, which emphasized that mines form a part of the broader socio-ecological system. And so stakeholder engagement and inclusion is really needed for collaborative efforts. The Skills Need project that was presented by Wessel today, there is a suggestion that we need some upskilling and reskilling to support new technologies. New skills are needed for job options post-mining. We need higher literacy and numeracy skills. Some additional qualifications may be needed. We might need some basic digital skills. We need to train for skills mix, and that education and training systems might need some realignment to meet industry skills demands. And these findings also resonate with the REEF project that was also presented yesterday on the Skills 4.0 project. I'm also going to now hand over to Martin, who is the PM for MMS and LOCM, to also assist with some of the highlights from the project.
Also to get in touch with people, the problems which people is facing. I think she captured that very well into her report with a very impressive conclusion. I've been involved into the blueprints and see the most effective results coming out of that. But not just the blueprint as such, also identifying then opportunities to see where there is the cycle time when we start off with in excess of 12 hours to conclude a cycle shift time. And when introducing these new technologies, there's major potential to optimize those shift cycles to a much lesser time frame, in which it is very likely that this a more conformant loss can be taken eventually at the end of the day. So I would open the floor now for any questions relating to the presentations being presented today. Thank you. I don't see any hands. I also don't see any questions coming through. I have a question here. Are the communities supported only local mining communities? If yes, how do you suggest we go about supporting communities without mining operations in their land? Yeah, I think one needs to really consider, if you really look at, like Sitze mentioned this morning, if you look at all of the elements of mining taking place, the this is a very broad spectrum of mining throughout the country. It's not just a center area of Gauteng or Northwest or anything like that. I think we've got a diverse spread of minerals and base metals and to cover a large portion of South Africa. But is it does it support communities? I think from all the social licensing with involving the mining rights, there's definitely a lot of focus on that areas to extend and looking at opportunities to improve on community strategies and being part of the mining going cycles and processes, and see opportunities where there can be linkages between the communities service providers to the mines. But for those areas which is not involved, I cannot answer that one. As I mentioned, there's a lot of opportunities which there's a large spread of mining activities across South Africa, which can definitely benefit some of the communities there. Shireen,
yeah, thanks. Sorry. Yes, thanks. So Martin, maybe if I can just add, I think that we need to actually recognize that mines form a part of the broader social economy, if we can say that, and that whether community are on mine sites or whether they're part of our broader community, we need to make sure that we engage with our communities, that they are included, in terms of activities, and that people centricity is very important. So we need to take communities along in terms of our mining modernization journey, and so inclusivity, collaboration, engagement with communities is essential and important. Thank you.
I don't see any other questions here. There's also no hands. Okay, I think that is it. Thank you very much for attending this session. I hope you got as much fruitful information from these presentations, and hope you can stay on for the rest of this process and the symposium for the rest of these activities. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thanks, bye.
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize I was on mute. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'll start again. So my name is Sazini Makamo. I work at Mintech. I'm a superintendent at the hydrometallurgy division. So today I'll just be giving you a brief overview of a project that I'm undertaking as part of my master's study under the leadership of the University of Witwatersrand and sponsored by Mintech. So the investigation is based on a request from industry for Mintech to assist them in better understanding tailings. You know, a lot of the plants in South Africa are currently treating tailings dumps. And the reason for this is because there has been a lot of deep mining occurring, and we are coming across a lot of refractory gold deposits, and we are seeing a lot of declining grades in our deposits. And due to political, social, and environmental problems, there's been a reduction in ore production. Therefore, some of the mines around the Johannesburg-Witwatersrand area have started using their tailings as a supplementary to make up for the decreased ore production. Now, looking at these tailings, Mintech then undertook a study in 2016 to evaluate the behavior of these tailings in terms of leaching. And this study showed that most WITS tailings are only extracting between 40 and 60% gold. And this is mainly due to slow leaching kinetics. Now, gold can either be refractory or free milling. A refractory ore is an ore where less than 90% of gold is extracted, while free milling is where more than 90% is extracted. Now, in the case of WITS tailings, this material was previously leached, therefore we do not expect high recovery. However, the fact that there is still some soluble gold that's available basically shows that there could have been some inefficiencies of the original process rather than that the tailings are refractory themselves. So we further had a look at what exactly did the tailings contain that made it so difficult. And we find that most of the tailings contained a high amount of sulfides. And these sulfides can really influence the behavior of the sample during leaching. So if a tailing contains a significant amount of sulfides, it will need to be optimized. You know, the processing option for that tailing would need to be optimized in order to look at excess cyanide conditions and various things. So I then undertook the study with the objective of understanding what exactly is the cause of the reduced extraction. And my hypothesis is based on that it's due to the reactivity of silver and sulfide minerals that now limit the cyanide's access to the gold particles. Then I developed a scope of work that would help me to scientifically prove what is actually causing this pure extraction and try to find a solution that will help to improve gold extractions. The sample that I used for my test work program was from the ergo flotation concentrate. The reason that we chose ergo is because ergo is a toll treatment of gold tailings in South Africa. So we saw that a sample from the ergo mine would be the closest representation of what we would see generally in terms of its tailings. I followed a methodology of first characterizing the sample in order for me to understand what exactly is contained in the sample. I did various characterization studies that involved a gold deportment study where I did a sequential diagnostic leach to find out which minerals are locking the gold and how can I extract that gold. The second part was to do a chemical characterization where I studied the amount of base metals, the gold and silver in the sulfide species. This would then give me an indication of exactly what is contained in terms of concentration. I also did a mineralogical study. Mineralogy basically tells us what are the mineralogical limits that can stop us from being able to extract the gold that is still present in these tailings. To go further, this is just a further illustration of what each of those chemical characterization targeted. We looked at things like what is locking the metal of interest, what are metal of interest, what is the distribution of the gold across the various sizes, what kind of preg robbers do we have inside the sample, which kind of reagent consumers can we expect, and lastly, what is the metallurgical deportment of the gold in the sample. In terms of mineralogy, we determined the gangue minerals, and we also determined extraction characteristics. We also found the mineralogical limits that could stop us, and also control efficiencies of process and the retention time in terms of the grain size distribution. Now, today I'll just do a brief and very short summary of what I found in the characterization that then led me to setting up a scope of work in order to solve the problem of reduced gold extraction. We'll look at the chemical characterization, mineralogy, and met work in general. So the sample that I was testing had a very higher gold grade of 3.01 grams per ton, which is because it was a flotation concentrate. It contains significant amounts of aluminium, chromium, copper, iron, magnesium, nickel, titanium, and silica. These can also influence the extractability of gold from the sample and can compete with gold in terms of cyanide and leaching reagents. We also had a look at the mineralogy and found that the majority of the gold was actually native gold, which means that it was actually gold that was recoverable. This then further proves that the original process could have been insufficient. That is why there was still some gold left. However, we found that there was only 2% electrum, meaning that the effect of the silver was not as much as we thought it was. So then we had to find out what exactly is affecting the extraction of gold. We then looked at the characterization of the minerals that were contained, and we found that a lot of the gold was locked in pyrite, pyrrhotite, arsenopyrite, and chalcopyrite. And when a gold is locked in a mineral, it means that that mineral will first have to be broken down in order to access that gold that is locked inside. Further to that, we then looked at the chemicals or the elemental components that occur with gold in order to see which of these elements will probably leach together with the gold during cyanidation. Now, if some of these leach together with the gold, it means that they will now use up the cyanide, the oxygen, and the lime that is actually supposed to be used for gold. Therefore, you have to take into account when adding your reagents in terms of the other elements that will react with the cyanide. In terms of mineralogy, we found that a lot of the gold that was contained within the tailings reported to pyrrhotite, pyrite, arsenopyrite, chalcopyrite. Now, all these are sulfide minerals. Now, because of the storage of the dams, the sulfide minerals could have become partially oxidized. And now there is evidence of this partial oxidization due to the occurrence of acid mine drainage. Now, if these sulfide minerals are oxidized and they are soluble in cyanide, it means that they will react in the cyanide solution to make other things that to make other compounds that we are not necessarily interested in. This will then reduce the performance of the sample. The gold deportment actually showed that we had about 79.5% of free milling gold, which was available for direct cyanidation. Now, the reason this was high compared to other plants is because we use an excess amount of cyanide and lime during the diagnostic leaching. This also further proves that the process could be insufficient instead of the sample actually being difficult to leach. Now, from the findings, we found that during the leaching of a viscosity tailing, gold, iron, and sulfur species leach simultaneously in a cyanide solution. These high concentrations of sulfides and ions then react with lime and oxygen and slow down leaching kinetics. Dissolution of pyrite, pyrrhotite, and arsenopyrite reduce gold extraction by complexing the cyanide required for gold cyanide complex and having an inhibition effect. Furthermore, the absorption of sulfates and sulfides that are formed from the attack of the sulfide minerals on the gold surface results in these species directly hindering the access of oxygen and cyanide to the gold particle. Now, in order to solve this problem, the gold extraction portion of the work had to be optimized, and we were guided by the findings from the chemical and metallurgical and mineralogical characterization. Now, the objective is to reduce the adverse effects of sulfide minerals, in return increasing the rate of gold dissolution. To solve this problem, I followed optimization, scope of work where I'll look at a pre-oxidation stage where I react the iron with lime in order to remove it so that it doesn't go into the next cyanide step. And then during cyanidation, I expect that there'll be an increase in gold extraction as all the iron should be removed and no longer affect cyanidation. I then plan to add some additives such as lead nitrate to help improve the kinetics of cyanidation. This will be basically the test setup that I would use. There'd be a bottle, add some the ore in the water, the lime, and then you filter it, and then you collect the filter cake, you analyze the solution, and you analyze the solids for your metal of interest. So in doing this, I'm hoping that I'll be able to bring a solution and increase the gold extraction. Just like to acknowledge my university supervisor and the team at MINTEC for assisting me with my studies and all the support. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope that you can hear me loud and clear and also see my presentation. So my name is Albie Steyn, and I'm currently doing an internship at the Council for Geoscience in the Water and Environment. Let me just share this again. The Water and Environment Unit. And today I will be presenting on the pestilence of iron and manganese in groundwater. I also would just like to acknowledge Mrs. Libugang Leku from the Council for Geoscience. This is just a quick disclaimer. So this is just the general outline of the presentation. Due to limited time, I will only give a brief overview without going into too much detail. I will attempt to just provide a sense of the width and depth of iron and manganese pestilence in groundwater, and then also research underway to address these issues through in situ treatment methods. It by no means captures all literature available and activities underway in the project. Just a quick disclaimer, but as indicated on the slide, the talk will progress in 6 main sections. Yes, so it is well known that groundwater plays a key strategic role in supporting economic development in South Africa. It's not only an important resource in the domestic sector, in the water and supply sector, but also in the agricultural and mining industries. So about 12% of South Africa's population reside within sole groundwater supply towns or settlements. And additionally, groundwater is used to supply approximately 350 towns and villages in South Africa, either independently or in conjunction with surface water. The development of groundwater supply schemes, however, in South Africa is threatened due to production borehole clogging, which is due to naturally occurring iron and manganese within the groundwater. Yeah, so during borehole construction and development and subsequent pumping, this introduces oxygen to the system, which leads to the buildup of iron and manganese oxides and also biofilm, and this leads to chemical and biological clogging. So clogging creates unsustainable water supply, it leads to reduced pumping rates, and this eventually leads to borehole failure. So remediation and rehabilitation of these boreholes and distribution supply infrastructure is usually after abstraction, so it's ex situ applied, while there are now increasing in situ treatments on the rise within the country. For iron and manganese, it's relatively abundant elements in the Earth's crust with a 50-to-1 ratio, and it gets mobilized or dissolved through physical and chemical weathering within the unsaturated and saturated zones. And under anoxic or anaerobic conditions, so this essentially means that there's a lack of dissolved oxygen, elevated levels of iron and manganese above regulatory guidelines can then occur. So then in terms of how borehole clogging actually occurs, the boreholes penetrate aquifers that is under anoxic or anaerobic conditions. And the ingress of oxygen during pumping, firstly during construction and development, and then associated pumping and extraction, it causes a shift in the redox equilibrium at the interface between the borehole screen and the aquifer. Now, abstraction may further enhance the mixing of aerated and reducing waters within the borehole due to turbulent flow conditions. And this is accompanied by the growth of iron and manganese related bacteria, and they are fed by the pumping of the borehole, and they are naturally present in the subsurface, and they then cause biofilm development on boreholes and associated equipment and distribution infrastructure. So as you can see, the microbiological processes often result in a slimy bacterial mat, like the picture on the left, and it produces odors which further deteriorates water quality. And then in cases of advanced stages of biofilm growth, coupled with reducing conditions, this can actually cause microbial-induced erosion of the ball and screen pump. So the biofilm is very adhesive and it persists despite high flow velocities. The high levels of iron and manganese in groundwater, it creates further water quality related issues, and it renders the water unsafe for consumption and also unusable. As you can see, it stains laundry, it stains taps and sinks, also walls, kettles, you name it. So the World Health Organization recommends removal of iron and manganese to concentrations below 0.3 and 0.1 milligrams per liter, respectively. So to circumvent clogging-related issues, the focus of treatment initiatives has been on resolving clogging problems, therefore treating the symptoms and not on treating the direct cause of the problems, namely the presence of iron and manganese ions in the groundwater. So in situ iron removal, it involves the oxidation of iron and manganese from the groundwater, and then the precipitates of the respective oxides then remain in the aquifer material. So the result is the abstraction of groundwater in which iron and manganese concentrations are lower than in the native untreated groundwater. So subsurface removal designs, it dates back to the 1900s with little experimental work done until 1971 in Finland. So the two most commonly applied treatments or the designs in Europe include the single well injection method, where a volume of oxygenated water is injected periodically into the subsurface. And then on the right, the viaducts method, which consists of multiple injection wells surrounding the production borehole, almost in a daisy wheel setup, and therefore it provides an oxidation screen. So an Inception project investigated the feasibility of this treatment method in South Africa in a primary aquifer with the novel use of ozone as the oxidant. So the case study is based in the Atlantis aquifer in the Western Cape province. The results were very successful, and iron and manganese concentrations were reduced in abstracted water, with the treated water injected at 4 meters up gradient of the production borehole. A patent was registered under the CGS name, which is the first in the country, and the project was continued in 2017, and technology was upgraded. However, further research in terms of the feasibility of the technology in different aquifer settings is being explored. So just a few concluding remarks. High levels of iron and manganese in groundwater, it is a natural phenomenon, and it's controlled by several physiochemical factors. And this may cause significant clogging problems in boreholes when redox conditions change during pumping operations. Now, eventually, the clog production boreholes need to be replaced and rehabilitated, and this can be a very costly exercise. And extensive research into methods of groundwater remediation and rehabilitation to prevent these the quality and the clogging problems, it has increased not only in the water supply sector, but also in other industries in the country. And there are commercially available remediation techniques out there, ex situ and in situ. However, the CGS has developed its own in situ iron removal technology that is patented, and it's still under development for different aquifer environments. So the design system and associated infrastructure is essentially based on the viaducts method, therefore using multiple injection wells and also using ozonation, which is a novelty. And to date, the technology has been successful in lowering iron and manganese concentrations to within World Health Organization and also South African national standards. And yes, just a couple of references, and that's it from me. Thank you very much.
Good day, everyone. I am Gabrielle Denner, and I'm also from the Council for Geosciences. So thank you so much for joining us today. I'm just seeing a message here that I can't remove. There we go. So I'll be talking about the research and development of an illegal mining monitoring system. Hold on. Well, we also have a disclaimer. Right, so illegal mining in South Africa, as you know, is also known as zamazamas and has caused a danger to communities and also the natural environment for quite some time. Hazardous things that occur are typically water and soil pollution, unstable structures, and even violence. So the product that I've created is called the Illegal Miner Mapper, and this utilizes Earth observation to map and monitor illegal mining activities within South Africa. It incorporates remote sensing data, machine learning, and image processing techniques to detect and map, specifically looking at the spatial patterns of illegal mining activities within selected areas. So the research and development period is just 1 year. It's from August 2020, and it's set to end at the end of August this year. So really exciting, this project received grant funding from a prize won at the 2019 Open Innovation Challenge that was hosted by the South African National Space Agency in collaboration with the Research Institute of Innovation and Sustainability. As part of the grant funding, accompanying the grant funding, very high resolution optical worldview data was sponsored from Digital Globe. And the grant funding was used to purchase very high resolution synthetic aperture radar GALFEN3 data. Just to refer back to the latest news events, as you're aware, maybe hopefully from the illegal, supposedly diamond rush that just happened in Ladysmith. As you can see, this is, it represents a little bit of what happens upon the surface, you know, holes are dug, etc., and it's a hazard to the work towards the environment. As the traditional leader in this community has mentioned that he's concerned about the livestock and people are just leaving and being negligent. So unfortunately, there isn't data already available on this area in Google Earth, for instance, that I could show. But once that's up, I mean, this is something that I'll also be able to track hopefully one day. So the illegal miner mapper value proposition is the following. It is the incorporation of data, machine learning algorithms, and hopefully we'll look into the cloud, creating a monitoring system that creates something called actionable intelligence. So meaning that I can give you something that you can actually use and make decisions on. This is essential for government policy making, targeted municipal action, and this even promotes entrepreneurial opportunities within the sector. Just want to see something. Okay, no. Okay, so the illegal miner mapper, for this I chose 3 areas, and from a study done by Canadian universities in collaboration with the Witwatersrand in 2019, they talk about illegal mining or artisanal and small scale mining ecosystems. And I do agree with that term. It really tells us a lot about what's happening, because each mining site has got its own geology, it's got its own rural or urban settings, it's got its own climates, and it has to be looked at individually. No routine can be used, you know, for each area. Each area has to be developed individually. Pardon me. So I'm looking at gold mining in Benoni, coal mining in eMalahleni, and then illegal sand mining in Durban. So some of the technical highlights used by remote sensing is like classification and change detection. So on the left bottom side, we've got a water map that I've made in Google Earth Engine. And what's nice about that is I can get time series data. The little graph there shows water over a time period. And then on the right-hand side bottom, I've got an index, the vegetation index that I just experimented with in one of the areas. And then at the top, we did field work, went out with the drone to take some photos. It was too dangerous to enter the actual area. And then the goal is to look at what is actually happening on surface that I can see that defines illegal mining. So in this case, I won't be able to see the miners themselves or the digging works really themselves because they're working underground mostly, but you can see what kind of footprint they're leaving for you that you maybe can map based on that. So continuing with the field work in the Benoni area, on the left-hand side, it's possible to see with the drone footage what kind of processing work they're using. They were using buckets, even dustbins filled with water. And then we've got these things called panduka stations. On the right-hand side, we were there on a police raid actually on that day. And they the police confiscated some explosives, they confiscated some old car parts that they use for crushing. And then at the bottom, number E and F are the actual pandukas. So what they do is they fill these with rocks and mercury, as well as the soil that they wish to process, and they mill it with that. And once they're done, they just discard it within the river or wherever they're going. And I believe they also work with the mercury in their hands themselves. So this is a big hazard to the human health system, both environmentally and for themselves, which is quite concerning. Moving on to the coal field work. So we visited 2 sites where there was known illegal mining activities, and yeah, they were gone, they moved. So the guys on the ground referred us to this location, which is about 3 kilometers south of the N4 highway on the road to Bugis. So as you can see, we found them. We took the drone and just flew over this estimated area, and it's not as big an area, but you can see the illegal mining workings of the coal over here. And then on the right-hand side, I just have a photo of the drone that we used to get these high-resolution images. This slide is to demonstrate the concept of resolution. So the Sentinel-1 synthetic capture radar data is a 10-meter resolution image, and the arrow is pointing towards a go-kart track. So this is freely available. And then this is the commercially bought Garfin 3 synthetic capture radar data at the 3-meter resolution. So this is really important in really seeing what's going on the ground, and the resolution in this study is really important. Some of the results I've got here, this is a modified machine learning technique I developed to map the illegal sand mining activities. I call them excavations, of using worldview data over 3 years. And if I can compare that with conventional machine learning algorithms such as random forest on the right-hand side, and to my modified method on the left-hand side, you can see the accuracy of the random forest already is really, really good at 99% accuracy and 0.99 kappa index, which is a measure of reliability. So the resolution really does have an influence. Also explained in this image where I did random forest on Sentinel-2 as well. So figure B, A and B is Sentinel-2, and then you can see that there's a 10% difference in accuracy as well as reliability when moving on towards the high resolution data for processing. Lastly, we've got the coal mining and gold mining results. The coal mining, I used the manual decision tree method to map this. And then on the right-hand side, we've got the gold mining using various methods, a mixture of worldview data there as well as Sentinel-2 data. So it's been picked up, but there's a bit of misclassification. It's being overclassified in some other classes, so this needs some more refining. Therefore, just to summarize, the work is still in progress. I'm very happy with the results so far. They look really promising, and the accuracies I'm quite happy about. Didn't expect that good that quality of results. So it definitely, the high resolution imagery is definitely important for this kind of study, especially for local studies such as these. But a medium resolution image such as Sentinel-2 may give a better regional indication, but you're not guaranteed to actually pick up the illegal mining themselves. So after the research and development, the next step will be for the actual automation of all the workflows. Thank you very much.
My name is Zintle Nonso, and I'll be talking about the Resource Atlas project that I did for the Summit project under the AOK program. Basically, the project was about a geospatial model that was created to give a holistic visual representation of the underground gold and PGM resources that still remain unmined due to a number of reasons. The project came about because over the years there have been different reportings in terms of the quantity of the remaining gold and PGM resources in South African mines. And although in those reportings the quantities were always different, so no one knew exactly what the actual number was, and also the reasons for the resources to be remaining underground. The aim of the project was to create a reporting platform containing all the quantity information about the gold and PGM resources information and the underground structures, the geological structures, and also to convert that information and have it represented in 3D so that it can be integrated with other models as well, and also so that it can be available to research students and mining companies if mining opportunities might arise from that. The objectives of the projects were to have an updated geospatial model that is current and has the correct information and information that has integrity and accuracy. Also, a final report that will be detailing all the findings from the proceedings of the project, and also an atlas that will be available to everyone for access. Some of the outcomes included producing maps of areas. We updated areas like the East Rand, the Central Rand, the West Rand, Velcom, the Bushveld, and Greenstone belts. During the updates, what we would do, we would take images, georeference them, digitize them, and then convert them to 3D so that we can have 3D visual representation. My role in the project was the project lead. I did all the admin work and just carried out all the activities that were involved in completing the project.
Sure, I think those were very interesting presentations, and I would like to thank, I would say, our friends and colleagues in the Council of Geosciences and in MINTEC for preparing such nice technical presentations, and then Zintle from the CSR. So I would like to open the floor for some questions. I'll just something from our side, and maybe we can have a chat about it. So Zina, you did quite a bit of work on the slime dams and the deportment studies. Was any studies done on the actual mine underground samples to compare it with the slimes? And then Albie, on your side, you guys have done a lot of work on the groundwater boreholes and drilling. Is there similar studies for surface exploration holes? I know there's some clogging in those holes as well. And I'm not sure about the amount of iron issues, because I know there's clogging and maybe it's similar issues. And then Gabriel, I still believe this stuff in Ladysmith is diamonds and not quartzite. So maybe Zazina, while we're waiting for other people to post their questions, maybe Zazina, you can maybe just comment on your work that's done on the slimes and compare that to mines and the mine samples. Zazina, are you still there? Okay, it looks like Zazina has left us. Albie, are you still there?
Yes, Michelle. Thank you for the questions. So just to clarify, do you mean have similar technologies been applied to surface water and distribution thereof?
So in our gold and PGM mines, we utilize a lot of surface boreholes for exploration. And these holes are then afterwards utilized for water. So I'm not sure if any studies has been done on those boreholes and if you've actually applied any of that technology that you were talking about in those specific scenarios.
No, so the in-situ treatment has only been applied in a primary aquifer setting in the Atlantis aquifer within South Africa, but current research is underway to actually like just the feasibility study to see how applicable it will be to other settings, like you said, but that's still under development. Yes.
I think it would be very interesting to compare.
Yes, but there's a lot of commercially available ex-situ treatments that has been applied in settings like that. Yes.
Yeah. I don't see any hands or any questions. I just find it scary with that picture that Gabriel posted on the Ladysmith area. And my concern would not only be the livestock, but also children running around and falling into those holes. Gabriel, would you guys actually be able to see the size and dimensions of those holes that these illegal miners are making? Is that one of the capabilities of the drone, or would that be something that you would be looking at in future?
Hi, Michelle. Thank you for your question. Yes, so with some of this high resolution data, the worldview data, for instance, is 50 centimeters. It's possible to make measurements. But for preliminary studies in especially an area that's so new as that, I would wait for Google Earth to upload the latest imagery for that area. And yes, they use this kind of worldview kind of data, so then you can measure the sizes of the individual holes, etc. So for instance, I would typically measure preliminary before buying data to see what kind of requirements I would need. So for instance, the Benoni area, those holes that they dig along those ridges are so small, I can't even see them on a Sentinel-2 image. So I know, for instance, if the area that they're excavating is smaller than 10 meters, then I won't be able to see it on the satellite image, on a freely available satellite image. So then I would know, okay, I would need at least like a 3-meter resolution, or maybe even something smaller. You would want to do that because your commercial data is quite expensive. So you really want to make sure you capitalize upon your data. But I think also what's interesting, sometimes when you do a change detection analysis, a time series, the changes that you pick up actually map the illegal mining activities, rather than when you're just looking at a single image, then you can't get it. So in that sense, a medium resolution might be able to pick it up if you know how to look, and you'll have to play around with that quite a bit. So there are some ways around it, but yeah, my answer is yes, you can measure that. I'm just so excited. I can't wait for the data to be uploaded. Michelle, I can't hear you.
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, I actually find it quite scary with some of the images that you showed there. Do you guys have any estimation of how many illegal miner activities are currently happening at this? Obviously, just looking at specific sites, but do you have any idea how much? Because I think most of us will have a big, I want to say, skrik or fright if we actually know about how much illegal mining activities actually taking place in South Africa at the moment.
That's a really good question. I would actually eventually get to mapping the whole of SA. So I just chose these as a starting point to see what it takes to create something like that. But definitely, just starting with the amount of mines that are classified as derelict and ownerless, that's typically where they start. And there are about 600 of those mines. And then what they normally do is they would just move around outside of those areas as well. And then, so what's nice, it's not nice about the illegal mining, but they do tell you where you've missed exploration, because they have the capacity, being local and small scaled, it's feasible for them to look around. And then normally as a big scale exploration operation, you might actually miss some of these information. So a lot of the illegal mining activities are also of interest for mines because they give an exploration clue on where these where are more ore deposits, especially close to the surface. So yeah, so I would start at about 600 sites, if I can put it that way. But I think there's a lot more, and it's just growing. People are just jumping on this bandwagon, and it's really unfortunate because a lot of this ecosystem that they're describing, people are doing illegal mining because it takes too long for permits and things like that. And it's also a lack of education. As you can see, the people using the mercury, which is very dangerous. Some of those communities are, you know, criminal communities as well. So it's, yeah, it's quite dangerous to go to these sites. So yeah, I hope I've answered your question.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, I think rather use the drone than going into some of those areas. And if thanks for your time. And again, I would like to thank the Council of Geosciences and MINTEC for their contributions. If there's no more questions, I would like to thank everybody for attending this session and as well as attending today. I think it's been very good, and some of us has been quite enlightened with some of the research and projects that's going on, not only within our own, you know, our own sphere, but also elsewhere. And then I would like everybody to join back into the main room where we will have our closed session. Thank you very much. Bye.